just yet. They chose their king, their power was met, but we don't answer to Ottawa yet. No crown gave us what we've earned, just dirt and fire and lessons learned. Now the ground it shakes, the steel it groans, and Alberta walks alone. We ride sovereign steel through fire, through frost. We ain't the last, we're the line they lost. Alberta stands, never on its knees. A nation born in the forge of the free. From the rigs to the rails, the crops to the code, we lit their streets, we bore their load. They laughed at pride, they mocked the West, but freedom don't die, it just waits for the test. The cowboys ride, the farmers rise, 5 million strong under open skies. No leash, no lie, no foreign throne. This land is steel and it stands alone. We ride sovereign steel through fire, through frost. We ain't the last, we're the line they lost. Alberta stands, never on its knees. A nation born in the forge of the free. Can't kill the mountain, can't drown the plain, can't burn the spirit that won't be chained. He stares down east with a calloused hand and says, this time we draw the line in the land. We ride sovereign steel through fire, through frost. We ain't the last, we're the line they lost. Alberta stands, never on its knees. A nation.
Welcome. It's 7-Eleven Daily Summary. It's Bruce Scholl here. Excited to be with you as usual. What an extraordinary time to be alive. What an exciting life and an exciting world that we are living in. My goodness, we are on our pathway to sovereignty right here in Alberta. I am so excited about the opportunities that we have. And I'm glad that you're here with me. Obviously, if you are here, make sure to share this out, get some more eyeballs on this information. We have got to wake up more Canadians. Unfortunately, at this point, he might join us a little bit late, but looks like Dr. Dennis Modry will not be joining, maybe a little bit later, like I said. So we're going to continue on. There was some really interesting information the last little while. Obviously, we are talking about Alberta sovereignty. Bill 14 was just introduced by the UCP government to help us get to a referendum faster. So we will be discussing that as well tonight. All right. But let me see. So some of the things that I wanted to talk to Dr. Dennis Modry, he is... Let me just give a little bit of background. So Dr. Dennis Modry is from the Alberta Prosperity Project, or we know him from the Alberta Prosperity Project, but he has a life, a long life prior to that, being a what was it, cardiovascular thoracic surgeon at the, let me see, critical care at McGill University. Anyway, so he was one of the first to do a heart and lung transplant. Very, very interesting, and obviously a very intelligent man. But most recently, we know him for joining the independence, or he is the sort of the driving force behind the independence movement. So I was looking forward to talking to him. We have had him on before, but maybe our lines got crossed tonight. So, like I said, maybe he'll join us a little bit later. But let's just get into it. And oh, looks like he's going to join me. So that's fantastic. But as usual, I like to start off by saying thank you. Thank you to you. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for my family, my friends, and the experiences that have led me to this situation, being unscrewing the news. Spreading the information. I started this project 2.5 years ago. I'll quickly tell you, started this project to document because we were living through the extraordinary times that we were. And I wanted to document this extraordinary time and the stories so that they were saved for generations to come, so that hopefully we wouldn't have to go through this. Hopefully we would learn something through these stories. So that was why I started on Screw the News, and I appreciate you being here. I'm always, always loving to hear from you, comments, complaints, any suggestions, or anything that you want to talk about specifically. Obviously, when I have guests here, love to hear any questions, live. So you can reach me through X, and now on YouTube, just most recently on YouTube, but you can get me on Rumble as well, on BitChute, and let me see, on Twitch. I'm also on Twitch. But thank you very much for being here. But also, I want to support local businesses. And I'm not your investment advisor, but I do suggest you getting gold and silver to protect your family's wealth. Hold gold and silver, not the EFTs. You don't want to have the paper contracts. You want to have gold and silver in your hand. And you can do that through Nugget Sector. Go to my website, unscrewthenews.com. Go down to the link, click on it, and it'll give you 0.25% off of any gold or silver purchases. You can also have free delivery anywhere in Canada. I think it's over $600. But if you have any questions, give them a call, 1-866-644-2121, and they will take care of any questions that you have. All right, we're going to get into it here, and it's unscrew some news. I'm coming to you from the heart of the battle-ready nation of Alberta. We bring you truth and optimism. Our goal is to break free from the media and the globalist mind control. It is December 9th, 2025. And this episode is number 234. Looks like Dr. Dennis Modry has just joined me, so I'm excited to have him join us. Dr. Dennis Modry is Bill 14, our gateway to sovereignty. That's what I've named this episode, and I'm excited to get into it. And because there's been some new revelations, new movement in the movement itself about our independence. So I'm lucky to have this gentleman join us. Let's welcome Dr. Dennis Modry. Thank you so much for joining me, sir. I'm just going to give the audience a little bit of a background on you, if you don't mind. So hang out there for a second. But Dr. Dennis Modry has been outspoken on policy issues, often from a conservative perspective. Alberta independence, a vocal critic of federal policies like National Energy Program. He sharpened his conservative views during his medical career. In February 2022, he became the CEO of Alberta Prosperity Project, and a nonprofit advocating for Alberta's economic sovereignty and potential independence. Under his leadership, the group grew in membership, awareness, and fundraising. And here we have him today joining us. It is such a pleasure to have you, sir. I am grateful to have you. We have seen some great movements, and I want to get into it and get your perspective. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Bruce.
It's exciting to have you, and exciting times. Obviously, we didn't have a chance to talk before, but a couple of things, and I'm going to give you a little bit of a heads up that I wanted to talk about. Bill 14, which you probably knew I was going to talk about anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to get your perspective. I saw you at the AGM in Edmonton last weekend, and obviously the MOU was a big factor there. And one of the other things that I want to talk to you about, and this is sort of an overreaching question, is the fear of the unknown, because Albertans, I think, a big part of what we're getting into is a fear of unknown. Is there a particular subject that you want to start off with?
Whichever way you'd like to go on this.
Okay. All right. Well, you know what? Maybe I can play this video. I did pull up a video with Keith Wilson, and I thought it was extremely good. We just listened to it for about a minute.
Sure.
And because I think it's well done. So stand by. Maybe you've seen this before. I think it's recent. So.
To sign a petition and will then lead to a referendum, I suspect, in October of 2026. And it'll be really important in the time between now and then that you reach out to your friends and your neighbors, that you talk to your colleagues, the guys on your hockey team, everybody you know, to explain to them the importance of independence, the prosperity that will bring to your community, to you, to your family, to your children, to your grandchildren, and how it is a way out of this dystopian nightmare of Ottawa-controlled Canada under the Liberals. An independent Alberta will not be subject to Bill C-69. It will not be subject to a carbon tax and these other things. It will not be net zero. We will be able to control immigration to reasonable, sensible levels. We will be able to have in Alberta, an independent Alberta, our own criminal justice system. We won't have this catch and release and two-tier politically motivated justice system that we've all witnessed. We'll have a prosperity that will come from our ability to develop our resources. So it's really important that you talk to your neighbors, to your colleagues, to anybody you meet about the incredible advantages that will flow to Albertans through independence. The economic prosperity will be able to lower taxes. People will get an instant raise because they won't have to pay crazy taxes. If you compare other countries like Saudi Arabia and others that have significant oil wealth and look at their economy, look at their population, look at the taxes they pay, zero, look at their average incomes, and Alberta's in a better position to achieve those proven outcomes than even what they've achieved.
Well, I think he says it pretty well, doesn't he?
Well, he does. It's fairly succinct. And what he's really highlighting is the benefits to Albertans are so massive as a result of Alberta becoming a sovereign country that I think for many people, it's almost too good to be true, and in their minds. And, a lot of people think, well, if it's too good to be true, it can't be true.
Right.
But the reality is it is true. And what's the alternative? The alternative is spiraling down the vortex of a dystopian future of Marxism and communism.
Yes.
And we don't want that. I think the people in Western civilization in general, particularly if they've embraced the foundational principles of Western civilization, that they will embrace this and they will eschew what has been going on. But our job as an educational society, and my role as the chair of the Alberta Prosperity Society, which governs the Alberta Prosperity Project, is to ensure that we get the message out to everybody. And that's really what Keith was talking about in that brief video clip that you stated. Talk to everybody you know. But it's more than just talking to them. It's engaging with them, first of all. Engaging them in a way in which, for example, what's your major concern? And almost in every single instance, that concern can be addressed through Alberta becoming a sovereign country. So it's a wonderful way to open up a conversation, even for people who are not necessarily on the independence train yet.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like I said, the fear of the unknown, I think, uh, is part of what may hold, some of that good energy back
Right.
is people being afraid. I mean, you've had so many. You know how many meetings you've had so far? Is it
Well,
1,000 yet, or is it in many hundreds?
well, it's many hundreds since we started, but just in the last 6 months, we've had about 75, 80 town halls now.
Wow.
Notwithstanding all of the podcasts and interviews on top of that. And what I found really very interesting in this era of the Alberta sovereignty movement, it's very different from any sovereignty movement previously. And just to cite one example of that is international media has attended has attended our town halls. For example, from Japan, the
Is that
BBC,
right?
Germany, CNN, ABC, CBC, um, and many of the mainstream media in Canada as well. And that's very different.
Hmm.
And when you see the people like Thomas Lukasik going to Ottawa to meet with the Liberal Party, well, that tells you everything you need to know about what he and others recognize to them is an unstoppable movement.
And a real
And
threat, don't you think?
well,
I mean,
it's a threat, but you know what's interesting, Bruce, is Alberta sovereignty is not a right or a left issue.
right.
It's a very pragmatic issue because it benefits everybody. And so the concern that the left has is primarily from the point of view of their perception that they're going to lose something.
Right.
Um, and to an extent, they're right if you're talking politically, because politically, the future for Alberta is freedom and prosperity. I mean, as you know, sovereignty is really self-governance and freedom from external interference, and it's a noble pursuit because if you think about it, what can be more noble than pursuing self-determination, freedom and prosperity,
Well,
your goals and aspirations? And this is what we're educating the public about, in addition to how to get there.
mhm. Well, since you brought him up, I wasn't sure if I wanted to talk about Tom, but we should probably talk about it because they obviously see it, or Ottawa sees it as a threat to their control, like you said, right? they
Of
they
course.
obviously think that Alberta should stay part of Canada, and I think a big part of it has to deal with the piggy bank aspect of it, um, because obviously we're an economic engine to a big portion of Canada. But I'm wondering, what else do you see that the because Thomas obviously is not going out there to change teams. He's not going there to extol the virtues of APP and say, you know what, they're going to do great and they're fantastic, because he's actually going to say, um, more than likely, that I think we read it in the headlines that they're armed to the teeth and they're angry white men. Um, he's trying to obviously throw out roadblocks, and you have to think that there's a reason for that.
Well, for one thing, I don't know anything about being armed to the teeth. Our whole approach has been to follow the letter of the law to achieve sovereignty for Alberta, which simply requires a successful referendum, which triggers the Clarity Act, which triggers negotiations about the process or the outcome of what a sovereign Alberta will look like and what Canada will lose as a result of Alberta leaving. But one of the things that is interesting in all of this is Alberta can be an example for the rest of Canada in terms of freedom and prosperity, a demonstration of what it actually will look like. And that's what we are doing. I find it fascinating that when we met with Paul Saint Pierre Plamondon, the leader of the Parti Québécois, he had indicated that when he wins the provincial election in Quebec next year, he is going to hold a referendum that he expects he's going to win. And when you ask him why, it's because they want to preserve their language, they want to preserve their culture, and they want to get out from under federal political corruption and economic corruption.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not so dissimilar to what we here in Alberta want. The big difference between us and them is they're a collectivist society. They believe in the collective having domination over the individual, whereas we in the West strongly believe in individual freedoms and rights, and that if you protect the rights of individuals and their freedoms, you will protect society, but the reverse doesn't occur. And we saw that, for example, with COVID, that the collective did not protect the rights of the individuals. And so we here in the West have a more individualistic perspective on things. But isn't it fascinating to see what the Quebec legislature did to eliminate the monarchy?
Right.
In a 100% vote in their legislature.
Yes.
And they never signed the 1982 Constitution. And Mr. Plamondon intends to remove the lieutenant governor when he becomes premier of Quebec. And so under those circumstances, ostensibly, they're already a sovereign country.
Right.
And which brings up, because our federal system is a failed constitutional monarchy, and they have no ties to the monarchy, they have no ties to the Constitution, then why, for heaven's sakes, are we giving them equalization payments, just as an example?
Yes. I think there's a lot of us that question that.
Yeah,
Dr. Modry.
exactly.
Yes, I do. I want to bring up the quote, the exact quote from Thomas, just to make sure that you didn't think I was exaggerating, but this is from the National Post. People are upset what Alberta's anti-separatist worries about now. Forever Canada leader Thomas Lukaszuk worries about Albertans he describes as a very small group, by the way, of angry militant men armed to the teeth.
Yeah.
So these are the things that I think are going to pop up. And I bring it up only because I want people to be aware that these things are going to be thrown at us, and they're going to try to take us off of our game, right?
Well, of course, he's right about one thing. If you assume that your teeth have the ability to do something more than just chew, then maybe he's right about armed to the teeth. But I know for a fact that everything that we're doing has been advocating for a peaceful secession from Canada for many reasons, some of which Keith Wilson in your brief clip highlighted. But you're absolutely correct. And, we are prepared to deal with the concerns that people have. We want to be able to deal with the concerns that people have. We want them to raise those concerns so that we can actually address them. And as you may know, Bruce, we have some just, for people that like looking at and reading material and look at our website, we have some 105 or 10 questions, frequently asked questions that are answered on our website. But there's no question that we like to do this in a way in which we can interact with people, so that if they ask a question and we give them the answer, there may be a nuance to their question that we haven't addressed. And this is why at town halls in particular, or when we have podcasts in which people can pose questions, it's a wonderful way to educate the public. And our whole mission is education. I mean, although the Board of Governors of the Alberta Prosperity Society governs the Alberta Prosperity Project, the project itself is designed to educate the public on the rationale and the merits of Alberta sovereignty and how to make it happen. And there's nothing militaristic or militia-like or violence associated at all with this movement. And we'll take exception, and they'll, and I put it to people like Thomas Lukasik, prove what you've just said. There's no evidence for anything that he said.
Yeah.
Now,
if
somebody out there on X or on Facebook makes some comment about violence, that's not representing the Alberta Prosperity Project. And I think it's telling for your listeners, just go to the website and hit the About button and look at just that first page. Purpose, founding principles, purpose, vision, mission, how to make it happen. So I think that's very relevant. Just hit the About button and bring it up. And there you go. The Alberta, what is it? And then you scroll down a little bit and you'll see on the right-hand side there, founding principles, our purpose, our vision, our mission. And I think this is important for people to understand. There's nothing in here that speaks to the lies that a failed politician like Mr. Lukasik would promote.
But okay, so a reminder, I'm only bringing it up because I need people to realize that Ottawa, other countries, the UN, the WEF, they are all going to be trying to keep us from getting to this goal. They may be spouting propaganda or lies in the media, like Thomas Lukasik.
Yeah.
And they need to know that this is not who we are. This is not who APP is, and this is not who the freedom-loving Albertans are as a whole.
Well, we're creating, just for your listeners' edification, we're creating a process by which anytime there's something negative that comes out, and it won't matter which social media or which mainstream media comes out, we will immediately be able to refute it. So on multiple media. So we're in the process of developing that right now.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah. It's important, right? Because the mixed messages that come out, and there's other groups, not us, that talk about misinformation. Well, they're the biggest spouters of misinformation that I can tell. And we have to be aware and prepare for that likelihood to come at us, because I think it's because that is the battle that we're in. It's a battle for information, correct?
Well, it is, and we are definitely prepared. This is one of the reasons why we love town halls and we love interactive podcasts as well, because we are able to then deal with the concerns that people may bring up. And there are many, obviously the big one for most people is, well, we'll be landlocked.
Yes.
That's one. But there are many others, and we're more than capable of addressing them.
So you've been doing this for a number of years. I know that you are the basically the father of Alberta independence and sovereignty, and so you understand this better than probably anybody that's out there. As far as an example, is Norway a fairly good example to look back on, where a country declared its independence from a larger country? Yes,
Sweden and Norway were one country at one time, and they had two different cultures, and they eventually agreed, hey, this isn't really working all that well. Let's separate. And they did. And this is not dissimilar to what Paul St. Pierre Plamondon when he was here and when he was in Calgary, and we met at the Palliser, and of course Jeff Rath and Mitch were with me. But we made this point, and that point is we would probably get along much better if we were separate countries, Quebec and Alberta. In this case, I want to include Quebec. I mean, Alberta eventually with Saskatchewan,
Yes.
likely the Yukon Northwest Territories as well. But we would likely get along better for a couple of reasons. One, we would respect our differences. If they want to function in a collectivist society under social democratic leadership, great. If we want to function under an individualistic perspective, under a Republican form of government, then we can respect each other's differences, and let's collaborate where we can agree on maybe trade, information sharing, and various things along those lines. And once you understand that it is important to acknowledge and respect differences, then you need to figure out, well, how can those differences be best respected, and then how can you work together? And Kosovo and Serbia did the same thing when, in 2008, you'll recall, Kosovo declared its independence unilaterally from Serbia following a successful referendum. And the same thing with Norway and Sweden. Look at what happened to Czechoslovakia, now Slovakia and Czechia. So you see how these things can happen and will happen, and it's just a natural process. Another way to think about this is look at the federal elections. Every federal election that takes place, you find that Saskatchewan, Alberta, Central and Northern BC vote different from the rest of the country, right?
Yes.
Happens every election. We very rarely win because of the way the federal provincial governance structure is set up, where we don't have representation by population, nor do we have regional representation in the Senate, nor do we have any control over the Supreme Court. So we're in this colonial situation that cannot be changed. There's no negotiating that can ever change this without Alberta having the leverage that it justifiably should have as a result of a successful referendum on sovereignty. And the Supreme Court, in its wisdom, when it did an analysis of the subsequent to the 1995 Quebec secession referendum, and the federal government posed the question to the Supreme Court, does a province have the right to unilaterally secede from Canada? That was the Quebec secession reference. Well, the Supreme Court, in its wisdom, defined, yes, if a region feels as though they've been living in a colonial situation, subjugated, dominated, exploited, and their self-determination inhibited, they have the right to form a new nation. And from that was born the Clarity Act, which is the legal pathway. And that's exactly what we're following. We're not doing anything out of the ordinary, but wanting to have a better future for ourselves, for our children and future generations. And I dare say, if we can get this done quickly, for our surviving parents who could benefit substantively as well, particularly with, a dramatic improvement in the pension plan.
Yeah, the APP, right?
Yeah, the pension plan.
I wanted to ask you, so there's a couple of things I want to ask you about. Did you see the recent pipeline decision in the House of Commons where they voted down a pipeline? Let me just see if I can find it here.
Well, the funny thing, Bruce, is that I don't know if you saw that media scrum with the Liberals. I thought it was really funny. So you had one Liberal MP say we're all united together in support of the MOU. And then you'd have another one come up right afterwards and say, no, we're not. I mean, it was absolute theater. It was comedy. It just goes to show you, one of the biggest problems that we have, seriously, is corruption, and the inability to hold elected officials accountable for lying.
Right.
Okay? For
Yeah.
lying.
Yes.
Now, an honest mistake is something different, but deliberately lying when you know better, when the evidence is sitting in front of you, and you lie to the public, there's no accountability right now. And you know, if another way to think about all of this is people are jaded. They're frustrated with government. They're anxious for something better and something different. And they're seeing what can happen when you've got a very strong leader, for whether you love him or hate him, but Mr. Trump.
Yeah.
You know, he's turned their economy around. And it's much to the chagrin of the leftists,
Yeah.
who feel as though government should exist to give them a handout.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And you know, they're fighting tooth and nail, but common sense is prevailing in the United States, in my opinion.
I completely agree. I completely agree. 100%. He's gutting the corruption is one of the great things that, you know, we can see happening. And there's another point. There is no party, there is no person in our government in Canada that will take this on. There is no Javier Milei in Canada's House of Commons that's going to take a chainsaw to the corruption, to the waste, to the abuse. There is nobody that's going to do that for us. I can see that.
Those people, Bruce, exist, but they're not in government. And they
not
exist.
In Canada, yeah.
There's no question they exist.
Yeah.
You know, and it would be wonderful if they would surface. You know, I have a lot of respect for Danielle Smith. I think she's doing a lot of good things. There are some things that I'm not so happy about.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, when I first met her, I told her the story about the time I had dinner with Margaret Thatcher.
Okay.
When she was in Edmonton, and I can tell that story. But the point is that at the end of that 3.5-hour meeting, when she drove from her home in just south of Calgary to meet with my wife and I at the sawmill on the Calgary Trail. That would have been in, I think, April of 2022. I said, you could be the Margaret Thatcher of Alberta if you want. You could, you know. I asked her if she became leader, would she lead based on polling or values and principles? And having just said that, I now have to tell you about Maggie Thatcher for a
Please
second.
do. Yeah, I'd love to hear the story.
So at this meeting, just to put it to frame this properly, Peter Pocklington owned the Oilers at that time.
Yes.
And he sponsored Junior Achievement, and every year he'd have a famous person come over and give a speech. It would be the keynote speech to Junior Achievement. And for a princely sum, you could have dinner with Margaret Thatcher in his home. He had a round table that would hold 12 people. And so my wife and I went to 3 of these dinners, one with George Bush Sr., one with Jerry Ford, and one with Margaret Thatcher.
Wow.
But Margaret Thatcher made a really interesting point. We talked about an interview that she did with Pamela Wallin. And she was regaling about her relationship with Ronald Reagan, and then the Falkland War. And I forget the exact circumstance, but Pamela Wallin said, "Didn't you think to compromise?" Well, that set her off. She said in a rather loud voice in that interview, "Compromise? I hate compromise. Compromise implies that both parties are wrong. And on values and principles, you never compromise."
Mm-hmm.
So this is a point in terms of leadership. If you lead by polling, then you will compromise your values and principles at times.
Yes.
If you lead the other way, then you have a responsibility to educate the public on why you're right.
Mm.
Okay. And if you are successful in educating the public on why you're right, you'll win the next election, right?
Yeah.
And that's the point that I'm getting at. Principled leadership is that. And I think that it's possible. I don't know for sure. I think it is possible that Danielle could do that, but I think she's being constrained by a caucus that is still primarily holdovers from the Kenney era who are federalists and who are Canada first and Alberta second. And so I think she's constrained in that way. And it may be that there have been moments that her caucus has said, you're not going to lead if you go out and talk in a certain fashion. I don't know for sure if that's true or not, but I suspect that it might be. And that may be what has constrained her. So whether that's true or that's not true, it's not for me to say. What is for me to say is that I had this conversation with her. She understands my perspective about leading based on values and principles and not on polling. She understands the perspective on compromise, which you don't compromise when it comes to values and principles. And this is an issue, and I think the jury's out. I think some people have made up their mind one way or another.
Yeah.
For me, I'm kind of maybe like she might be. She's with respect to getting in front of the, remember Ralph used to say, find a parade and get in front of it?
Yeah.
Well, she hasn't gotten in front of the parade. So it may be that what she's waiting for is a definitive poll. And how about this as a definitive poll, Bruce? When we go ahead and we start collecting our petition signatures, what do you think her perspective might be when we have over 1 million signatures on just the petition? Not the referendum, but the petition. Do you think then she might get in front of this parade?
Well, yeah, I think so. I mean, that's my perspective.
Yeah, well, that's what I think might happen as well. But
yeah,
we'll have.
Do you think it'll be too late though?
Well, no, I don't think it will be because let's put it this way: the MOU is falling apart before our eyes, right?
Yes,
we're seeing that. So what is it that she's going to actually get? I think that during the petition period, there's going to be a tremendous amount of publicity, okay, for and against Alberta sovereignty.
And that's all good.
It's going to raise the profile substantively, no question.
Yes.
But at the same time, what else is going on? What else is going on is she's not able to move the needle with the federal government, okay? Right. And if you think about it, look at the way the provincial government has responded to the federal government encroaching, if not usurping, provincial constitutional authority in the areas of the development of oil and gas, agriculture, censorship, and property rights. She's launched, or the UCP government has launched some 19 lawsuits against the federal government in these areas. Is this any way for a relationship to occur when you have to constantly sue to try and get something, and then you're at the mercy of a liberal appointed Supreme Court to adjudicate many of those decisions?
Correct.
I mean, it's an impossible situation. And so what I'd like to suggest to your listeners is that we get over 1 million signatures on this petition, which will then obligate the provincial government to hold a referendum on sovereignty. But at the same time, she should be able to come to the public and say, citizens of Alberta, we have tried everything to try and get any sort of a deal with the federal government, and we're blocked at every way. Will you give me and my government the leverage to be able to effectively deal with the federal government? Will you give me that leverage through a successful referendum on sovereignty? And I suspect that she does that, and it'll be a slam dunk winning the referendum.
Game over. Okay, so you brought up the strong leader question, and I had something happen during the UCP AGM that I wanted to get your perspective on. I happened to be talking to Ezra Levant, and asked him what his thoughts are. And he said, well, Quebec always had a very charismatic leader to lead this, to lead the referendum forward. And he said, do we have that here in Alberta? And I looked at him and sort of questioned myself. And I thought, Danielle Smith is good at, I personally think, she's good at managing. And I think that she has done some of what we hope as conservatives for the province and for our children and for our successful businesses. But I also think that, she may not be the right person for leading an independent Alberta. Do you think that we need a leader? That was my question to you, because I don't necessarily think that we need a political leader, or I don't think we need a party to take us forward as an organization, as a group. If we all have the same mind frame that this is the freedom that we're looking for, I think that person bubbles up that we were talking about, that strong leader.
Yeah,
and I'm not taking anything away from Danielle by saying this.
No. I know it's a very good question. I want to frame it this way: the answer to your question. We need a leader who has the courage to win. Okay, literally has the courage to win at all costs. I've used this analogy in talking to people before, but if you consider in the Second World War, when the Allies stormed the beaches of Normandy, they had the courage to win because they were willing to accept the risk. And there were two risks. One was a bullet in the head, and two was being subjugated by a globalist Nazi regime, right?
Yeah.
That was their risk. They took that risk and they won. They had the courage to win. In 2015, there was a party called the Wild Rose Party that was competing against the Provincial Conservative Party, right?
Yes.
And those Wild Rose people had the courage to win because they knew that the alternative would be a progressive conservative party that was unwilling to deal with the federal government, was incapable of successfully dealing with the federal government. So nothing was going to get better for them. And they also knew that if they didn't win, it could be an NDP government. And it wasn't that Wild Rose failed to win. It was that those people who crossed the floor betrayed them. Okay? That's important for people to understand. Now, the question is do Albertans have the courage to win? And I think they do, because I think they well recognize where they're at right now and what's coming, and how much better off they will be. And so the courage to win, therefore, is paramount for Albertans to win. I suspect Danielle learned her lesson. Okay.
Yeah.
And I suspect that if she doesn't have quite the courage to win, because if she did, she'd be out there already.
Right. She would already be on the parade. Yeah.
But yet at the same time, everything that she's doing does demonstrate to the Alberta public that we can't get a deal with the federal government.
Right.
So she's done two things really well. One, she's demonstrated she can govern. You may not agree with everything that she's done, or that many things that she could have done she hasn't done yet. That's what frustrates a lot of people who are in favor of Alberta sovereignty. Yeah. But she's done the second thing really well as well, and she's demonstrated and continues to demonstrate that we really can't get a deal with the federal government. Okay, so where I'm going with this is that at some point, I am hoping that Danielle herself will have the courage to win and the courage to come out and speak to the public from the perspective of her values and principles on preserving Alberta, Alberta's sovereignty, which we don't quite have yet,
Yeah.
but achieving it, and permitting us to have the freedom we deserve and the prosperity that we deserve. And I hope she gets there. I
Yeah.
really do. But you raise a really good question. If not her, who?
Yeah.
And right now, when people say, well, who's leading the Alberta Prosperity Project? And our answer is, well, it's not me, it's not Jeff, it's not Mitch. I mean, we variably get, publicity, but that's
Yes.
not the point. It's the people involved with this movement. It's a populist movement, and it's a populist movement that's leading itself. So really, that's where we are. That's why I say, going into the petition, going into the referendum, it's not about any specific person within the Alberta Prosperity Project.
No.
It's with respect to Albertans who are frustrated with the status quo and want something dramatically better.
This is the ultimate grassroots movement, don't you
This
think?
is. It's what we are achieving is the ultimate grassroots movement. Exactly.
Yeah, I see that, and when that question was posed to me, and now I've posed it to you, I think that it really shows that the people are what make this move forward.
Yeah.
And it's you and other people that are frustrated and have seen what we've gone through, and the Danielle Smiths, making those moves to say, you know what, we need to scrap the tanker ban, and we need to, get a pipeline through. And yeah, when it shows its ugly head that we can't actually get a deal, it makes it much more palatable, I think, for people to recognize. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, when you mentioned the tanker ban, it makes me think of EB and the coastal First Nations.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to see a pipeline. They don't want to see tankers on the coast. But why is it that they tolerate tankers going by every day in two directions between Alaska and southern ports? Doesn't make sense, does it? But yet they never answer that question.
But the force that we're fighting, the force that we are up against, is anything if not hypocritical. I mean, we see it all the time. Everything is hypocritical.
Yeah.
Getting back to the referendum, I have a question as far as, because you brought it up. I thought when Bill 14 was moving forward and Amory was now going to take the referendum question, right, I thought we wouldn't have to go to a petition first. But you're saying that we still have to have a petition to then.
Well, there's two things. There's two ways to get to a referendum. One is through the Citizens Initiative Act. So once the Bill 14 is proclaimed into law, then we will be resubmitting our question with Elections Alberta.
I see.
And so that's one way. That's the Citizens Initiative Act as modified in Bill 14. That's what we can do as citizens. The second way a referendum can take place is if Danielle herself decides, and the UCP government themselves decide, well, we're going to hold a referendum on Alberta sovereignty because we think it's important for the public to decide this issue.
Well,
those are the two ways.
If you were Danielle Smith, and I know you're not there, but putting yourself into her shoes, if I'm Thomas Lukaszuk and I bring you 465,000 person petition that says that they want to stay in Canada, but I wanted a referendum, and then you have this other group, the APP, which is I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of people that are a part of the APP, but I know it's many. Wouldn't you just say that there's obviously enough? Let's just use the analogy that there's, we've got two kids and you have two children. Now they're fighting over a toy, and this is Thomas versus the APP. So wouldn't you just settle the argument and just say, okay, fine, we're going to have a referendum?
Well, it's a bit more complicated than that.
Sure.
If you look at Thomas's question, his question is not a question that can possibly lead to Alberta
Right.
sovereignty.
Right. It's
Because
not a constitutional
not a
question.
constitutional question. It's a policy or a legislative question. What I mean by that is that what he wants to do through this petition is to have a referendum that would result in the UCP bylaws being changed in a way in which a future UCP government could never have a referendum on Alberta sovereignty,
Oh,
or to implement legislation to achieve the same objective. Okay. Our question, on the other hand, is a question that ostensibly could remove Alberta from the Constitution. Okay, as it becomes a sovereign country. Now, if you look at the question, let's say Danielle goes ahead, and the UCP government go ahead with Lukasik's question, and his question is do you agree that Alberta should remain in Canada? If the answer to that question in a referendum is yes, nothing changes.
right.
If the answer to that question is no, nothing changes.
Mm,
That's why Justice Feasby
right.
referred to the question as a nothing burger, because nothing changes. But what does change is $20 million out of the taxpayer's pocket goes to
Right.
pay for a referendum that doesn't achieve anything.
Right.
And so let's look at the dilemma that Danielle finds herself in. If she has a referendum on on the question that Lukasik posed, do you think that's going to satisfy over 1 million people that we know already are in support of Alberta sovereignty?
Well, certainly not.
No. So she runs a massive risk of splitting her party when we know that 2/3 of the members, well, we have 5 times as many members as the UCP party does as well. But we also have over 1 million supporters. So the point that I'm getting at here is she is very concerned. If you were going to have a referendum and you're thinking politically, you want to diffuse this. You want to diffuse this problem of splitting the party.
Right.
What's the best way to diffuse it? It's to have an honest, proper referendum that could conceivably lead to Alberta leaving Canada according to the Clarity Act, following the tenets of the Clarity Act. And that's her safest pathway.
Okay, I have one more question for you, and I'm sure you probably got to go. But my question to you is, when I posed these same questions to other caucus members when we were at the AGM, I got the sense that they're fearful of the answer of Albertans. I get the sense that they don't want it to go forward because they're fearful that Albertans do want to leave Canada. What are your thoughts, or what did you get from talking to other members of the party?
Well, I think that for a number of those people, that's true, because for one thing, they're federalists.
Yes.
Okay? And they absolutely are not governing in the best interest of all Albertans. Because if you ask the question, what can be better? What can Canada offer to Alberta that's better than Alberta being completely out from under all federal regulation and taxation? Nobody can answer that question. No MLA will answer that question.
Right.
A couple will privately. Okay. But the answer to that question is the federal government can't offer anything better at all. But to govern, you have to kind of maintain your caucus unity. And so, unfortunately, Danielle doesn't have a caucus that is willing to govern in the best interests of Albertans. And I say that because, like I've stated, there is no possible understanding that anybody can have that remaining in Canada is better than being completely out from under all federal regulation and taxation. It's
Yeah.
such a no-brainer, but it's kind of like ostriches burying their head in the sand. They just don't want to hear it, and I think that's where a lot of them are. I've made a challenge already. I've made a request specifically for APP, selected a couple of selected people from APP, myself included, to meet with caucus. Okay, I've asked for that.
Okay.
I've
Yep.
asked at the party level, and I've asked directly with the premier. I don't have an answer to that yet, but I would like to take them through a detailed understanding of how this all started, going back to 1904, before Alberta joined,
Yes.
and take them through the history of Alberta, and take them through an understanding of what could be far better, and then have a discussion about it. And, for many of them, I think they just don't want to bother being educated on the rationale and merits of Alberta sovereignty and how to make it happen.
Right.
For example, I have heard it's too much work. Really, it's too much work.
Yeah.
Okay? That's one of the responses that I heard from
my.
MLA. It's just too much work. All right. Well, I can think of words that haven't been invented yet to respond to that kind of stupidity.
Yeah. For that MLA, I just want to say, get out of the way then. Get out of the way. We'll do the work.
It's so arrogant to say something like that.
Yeah.
It's too much work to govern in the best interests of Albertans. Really? Wow.
Yeah.
That says a lot.
That does say a lot.
Yeah.
You know what? Dr. Dennis Modry, I appreciate you taking the time. I'm sure that we probably interrupted your dinner, so I appreciate you taking the time to be here. So important. And I know that you're so busy. Thank you so much for taking the time to share with my audience and other Albertans that are really, really so concerned about, you know what? Not just Albertans. I have a lot of friends and a lot of audience members that are outside of Canada, and I have a lot of people that are cheering for us, that are very excited for us and willing to stand up and say, yes, go for it, Alberta, and do whatever they can to help us achieve our goals. So it is an exciting time.
It is. And I think a lot of people who make that kind of a sentiment from other countries want us to be successful, but as an example of what they can do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, I think that we will be that beacon of light to many other areas, Saskatchewan being one of them. I don't want to hold back what we're doing, but I certainly want them to join us if they're interested, and it looks like that way. Anyway, thank you so much for taking the time. I appreciate you being here. I'm just going to say goodbye to the audience.
Okay.
If you don't mind, have 10 seconds. But thank you so much for being here. Make sure to share this out. Get more eyeballs on it. I appreciate Dr. Dennis Modry being here and sharing his knowledge and understanding on the Alberta independence movement. God bless you all. Keep your head on a swivel. Let's stay sane together. And this is Bruce, and I'm out of here.
Thank you so much for watching Unscrew the News. I appreciate your participation in freedom in Canada. Share this information and help others to wake up. God bless.